What is up, guys? Welcome to Loveshack Entertainment, and today we're going to be bringing you another deck profile video. We've had some requests to see some more deck profiles, and of course, I don't want to do too many repeat ones, especially because we've done plenty of these in the past that have been repeats, like zombies and heroes and others. So, today we're bringing you an original deck profile, one that we have not done yet, and that would be Gravekeepers. So, Gravekeepers is a deck that has been around for a very long time, starting back with, like, Pharaonic Guardian, which, if I'm correct, came out in, like, 2005, maybe earlier. Actually, I'm almost certain it was earlier. So, the deck's been around for a while. It's most recently gotten support, I can't speak today, it's most recently gotten support in Legacy of the Valiant, where it got Imperial Tombs of Necro-Rally and Gravekeeper's Heretic, which is actually some pretty cool support, and there were some other things too, but I don't personally play them in the build. So the deck has always been kind of like a fan favorite, and it was pretty cool to see them get them support. So, let's take a look at the deck. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible, and I can explain some choices if you have any questions, while acknowledging that it's far from perfect, but it does work pretty well as a semi-competitive rogue deck that has good matchups against a lot of stuff. So, we will start out with the monsters, and we'll just kind of move on from there. So what I think should be really obvious would be 3 Gravekeeper Spy. This one, for those of you who don't know, or maybe live under rocks, when it's flipped, you special summon a Gravekeeper's monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck. So, it's a really good card, and it's powerful because it pretty much tutors your entire deck, and under Necro-Rally has 2500 defense, so it's really good for stall. You play 3 Gravekeeper's Recruiter. This one is when it's sent to the graveyard from the field, you can search a Gravekeeper's monster with 1500 or less defense from your deck and add it to your hand. So it can search literally everything in the deck with the exception of Spy, which is kind of a balancing factor because it would be pretty silly if you could just grab Spy and really fuel those combos a bit faster. Though I'll argue with the power creep the way it is now, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for the deck. 2 Gravekeeper's Commandant, or Commandant, however you feel that you want to pronounce that. This card is very good. It's you can discard this card to add 1 Necro-Rally from your deck to your hand. So a lot of people will tell you need to play this at 3 in the deck. You can. Honestly, it's not like a be-all, end-all if you do. I just preferred it 2 because it does kind of dead draw late game. And with cards like Gravekeeper's Stell, it's pretty easy to recur it back into the hand if you need it, so you can search, and you don't want to end up dead drawing it because this deck plays a very control style, so more space you can dedicate to traps and such, the better. So 2 seems like the ideal number for me, and 2 as well with Gravekeeper's Descendants. This one, you contribute a face-up Gravekeeper monster you control, except this card, destroy 1 card your opponent controls. So obviously, it combos really well with Recruiter, because you pop and search, but you have other Gravekeeper's cards, obviously like Spies that you might have left over, and Commandants and stuff like that, that make it really powerful. And the other thing, obviously, is that almost all of these guys are 1700 or more under Necro-Rally, which means you got some pretty powerful beat sticks on your field as well. As far as other Gravekeepers go, we play 1 Gravekeeper's Heretic. This one is one of the ones I mentioned earlier. It is unaffected by all card effects except for Necro... It is unaffected by all card effects as long as Necro-Rally is on the field. So, it does not get the boost from Necro-Rally, but it is 18 and literally untouchable by anything other than destroying it in battle. So, if you can play around it, it can be a really powerful card, especially if you get something like Vanity's Emptiness out against decks, even Necros, I would argue to an extent, has somewhat of a problem against this card, and really just the deck matchup as a whole because of graveyard restriction. So it's really good at 1, you could try it at 2. And then 1 Gravekeeper's Assailant, which is, if this card battles a monster, you can change the battle position of 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. So it's cool because basically, it can allow you to get over some bigger monsters while being a 2000 beater under Necro-Rally, but you do need to have Necro-Rally on the field to use its effect. So, it's one of those cards that you kind of just play at 1 because it's another Gravekeeper's name, it's something you can search off Spy, and it just has a lot of practical uses. And then 1 Fossil Dyna Pachycephalo. I mean, you don't special summon much in this deck at all, and when you do, it's usually off Spy, so you can kind of set it up so that you play around this effectively. But this card is really powerful. Again, with Necro-Rally, you're restricting your opponent from doing anything with the graveyard, so when they can't special summon and they can't touch their graveyard, it becomes increasingly difficult for them to mount a comeback play, which is why Dyna's pretty cool. And I kind of almost have considered running it at 2, but you do have Vanity's Emptiness and other stuff, so it's not like you really need to go overboard with it. Let's take a look at the spells next, which is obviously another important element to the deck. And it's combo-oriented, but the whole deck works really well together. 3 Necro-Rally. I'm not going to explain what Necro-Rally does. For those of you unfamiliar, you can check it out on the Wikia. But it does all sorts of things, and it sees play in decks like Cliff Orts and Necros as well for other reasons due to its graveyard restrictions. And it's the combo piece of the whole deck. 2 MST. Some decks don't even main MST right now, but I still think it's worth it here. Just, being able to clear the field and push for game a little bit more effectively, especially against stuff like Skill Drain, which might hurt you, or Fiendish Chain, stopping your Spies from going off, depending on, how well you're playing. 2 Pot of Duality, because again, you don't special summon much, so this just adds consistency to the deck, lets you search out your pieces faster, and ensure that by, turn 1 you can get Necro-Rally and Spy, which is the ideal open for the deck. 2 Gravekeeper Stealth. This is just a salvage for Gravekeepers, but it's unaffected by Necro Rally, so you get your search even if it's on the field. And this can recur basically any of them from your hand. Recruiter to get an extra search, Spy to, basically tutor another monster from the deck, so it's just useful on all fronts there. 1 Allure of Darkness, why not? Book of Moon, again, really good card. I think originally Gravekeepers might have been part of the reason this card took a hit of some kind. You can reuse Spy with it and stuff, and obviously this is just kind of like a Swiss Army knife card in that there's so much it can do. And then you got Regeki, which is Regeki. Mass Change 2, which is a cool card because you can use it with Dark Law. You can use it to make Dark Law, rather, and still get a search off Recruiter and stuff like that. So it's one of those cards you just kind of play at 1, but can really turn some of your weaker Gravekeepers into bigger combo pieces. And then 1 Royal Tribute, which is only at 1, which is why you play 1, but both players discard all monsters in their hands if Necro Valley is on the field. So this can disrupt a ton of stuff, especially if you have something like Vanity's Emptiness on the field when you activate it, or Macrocosmos Defissure or whatever if you're side decking. Go to traps now. 2 Imperial Tombs of Necro Valley. It's the counter trap. If you control a Gravekeeper's monster and Necro Valley, you can negate a spell trap or monster effect and destroy it. So really cool card. It's very powerful, but it's kind of a dead draw at 3, especially because a lot of times you may end up opening it late game, which is where it's not as useful as it would be if you can open it early. 2 Mirror Force. Good card, hits a lot of stuff, just powerful. A lot of this deck is kind of slow play control, so you want to make sure you have those answers. 2 Fiendish Chain, really good card. Breakthrough Skill's practical as well, but in here you can't really banish it from the graveyard with Necro Rally on the field, so Fiendish is obviously a safer bet. 2 Dimensional Prison, obviously just, you're playing control, gets over a lot of stuff. You don't really want to throw away much from your hand because you don't really have a lot of extra leeway, which is why something like Karma Cut or Phoenix Wing Wind Blast is not preferred to Deep Prison here. And then 1 Torrential, 1 Bottomless, 1 Compulse, just staple traps, all useful in this deck, especially because Torrential can trigger your Recruiter effect and such. 1 Solemn Warning, again, Ring of Destruction, and then Vanity's Emptiness, which of course was an ace card of this deck, especially when it was at 3, and it made it a lot more competitive as a rogue build just because of how easy it is to lock the field with Vanities and Key Beetle and Necro Valley. So that's it for the main deck. If you had any questions about that, feel free to drop a comment below. I can try to explain the choices. I just try not to make these deck profile videos too long because nobody wants to sit and watch one that's that long. So, extra deck, Diamond Direwolf, Castell, Exiton, Cowboy, just generic rank 4s, and this is just like a deck that we just recently started working on putting back together, so I don't have like a shark yet, but the majority of other stuff we do have. You don't exceed much at all with this deck anyway. More so, you're not going to touch the extra deck unless you're making a Key Beetle or a Dark Law, but having those options there is still useful. And again, like I said, the extra deck is a bit outdated because we wouldn't be playing Utopia and that stuff in here. And you got Anki and Dark Law. Catastor's only in here because we side Veilers, so in the instance that you do side a Veiler in, and for whatever reason, dead draw or your brick against a matchup, you can't do anything about it, it's definitely at least useful to have some kind of out to it. And for the side deck, 2 Puppet Plant. This gets Warriors or Spellcasters, so it does hit some things, and Electric Virus does the trick as well, but you don't see Machines and Dragons as much currently. 2 Effect Veiler. It's Effect Veiler. It's great in here. It's Spellcaster, so I'm not going to go into full detail on it. Gravekeeper Shamans. This one's interesting because it's kind of like a Abyss Dweller for Gravekeepers, but it also prevents the destruction of your field spell cards by card effects of your opponent. So, if the problem being, of course, that it's level 6, but if you're playing against deck like Dark Worlds, maybe a Rogue matchup, or even Necros to an extent, it's useful to toss this in here because it stops effects in the graveyard from activating. So, it also works against Burning Abyss as well, so pretty cool card. 2 Degenerate Circuit, just kind of a silly card against the Yosenju matchup, and it's interesting because, they bounce back to the hand, they get banished, and I've talked about this in previous deck profiles. Dimensional Fissure, 2 Light Imprisoning Mirrors. Again, you can't play Shadow Imprisoning in here and hurt your deck a bit too much, but this works obviously against any light-heavy decks, Light Sworns, things like that. 2 Imperial Iron Wall, counters Ritual Beasts, counters, again, Necros to an extent, anything that's going to rely on banishing. And then 1 deck Devastation Virus, because it's almost always live. The majority of your deck under Necro Valley is a target for it. And then 1 Macrocosmos, because you side in Macro Defissure against decks that, are heavy reliant on the graveyard, like Volcanics and such, which obviously is a good matchup against this because you both slow play, and Volcanics just do the slow play better. Those can really cripple that deck. So that's basically going to do it for this deck profile video. If you guys have any questions or comments, concerns, feel free to drop a comment below, and I would love to hear from you. Hopefully we talk about it. Guys, share your own opinions. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time right here at Loveshack Entertainment.